Ladies and gentlemen, dear fellow many countrymen and women, both from metropolitan France as well as from overseas. If so many of you are here today, it is because you have understood, especially in the light of recent events, that against the candidates, either left-wing or right-wing, but both guided by financial interests, I am the candidate of the people. Indeed, in all respects, this presidential election is nothing like the previous ones. It opens a crucial debate at which the foundations of our country are at stake. Its outcome will determine whether France will remain a free nation, and for those of our fellow countrymen and women who, like us, feel French above all, it will determine our existence as people. Our leaders have chosen deregulated globalization. They dreamed of a happy and fortunate globalization, but their dreams turned into a nightmare. Globalization is driven by the sole purpose of huge profits for the happy few and operates on two levels. Globalization from the bottom results in massive immigration, used as social dumping, and globalization from the top, resulting in the savage merchandising and competing, directing the entire economy. Globalization, which used to be a fact of life with the growth of international trade, was turned into an ideology. It is called global economy, which refuses any limit, any regulation, and therefore weakened the natural defences of our nation and deprived it of all its defending attributes: borders, national currency, the power over its laws, economic policy making. And it allowed the birth of a new form of globalization which is rapidly growing: Islamic fundamentalism. Just as in any ideological struggle, Islamic fundamentalism has found useful idiots, agents, more or less accomplices, who by cowardice, blindness or cupidity ease the progress and anchoring of this barbaric ideology, enemy of France, on our own French soil. In order to expand, the supporters of these two ideologies give the illusions of embracing our values. In reality, however, they falsely invoke the concept of freedom to establish their totalitarianism. It is like advocating the freedom of the fox in the henhouse. The global economy promotes individualism, radical Islam, and communitarism. Globalization feeds on the denial of the fundamental pillars on which the French nation was founded, and which most French people still regard as essential: the preeminence of the human being and his sanctified status, individual liberty and therefore individual consent, national consciousness and therefore national solidarity, equality of all people and therefore the refusal of submission. The principles we fight for are engraved in our national motto: Liberté, égalité and fraternité, which stems from the principles of secularization resulting from a Christian heritage. We cherish everything that unites the French people, this ungraspable yet deep and comforting bond which creates in our hearts a sense of fraternity, allowing us to face the future together. My project was presented to you this weekend. In this inert political world, bereft of any political will and devoid of any result-orientated culture, my project is approached from three angles: the revolution of patriotism, the revolution of proximity, and the revolution of liberty. Politics. Politics on high level, which allows a country to regain its marks, must induce meaning and create cohesion. We believe it is time to revitalize national consciousness and to experience it in our daily lives by teaching our children everything their country stood for and will stand for in the future, by teaching them to love their fellow countrymen, to take pride in their history and to be confident in the strength and force of our nation. We want every French citizen, whether enthusiastically engaging in a project or undergoing difficulties, to feel supported by the national community and by a careful and benevolent state. We want a strong state. We want a state that plays a strategic role in the economy. And who could blame us? For it is you, the people, who embody the state, and when it's the state, the instrument to fulfill your will. We cannot call ourselves patriots if we do not stand for national solidarity, which is the expression of a fundamental solidarity between the French people. This is why we will establish a priority for French nationals in matters such as attribution of social housing as well as employment. This principle will be added to the Constitution. Contrary to the political establishment, we will promote proactive policymaking, dynamism, justice, virtue and patriotism, because once again, it is only together that we will succeed.
Mais le patriotisme suppose aussi un pays qui se respecte.
But patriotism implies for a country to respect itself and to command respect. To all, especially to the people of different origins and different confessions who have been welcomed into our country, I remind the obvious. There are not, and there will never be, any other laws and values in France than French laws and French values. We want France's heritage to be transmitted. We want a country that finally recognizes the value of work, because the most important social measure is to give every French citizen a job, a paid job for which he or she receives an appropriate wage or remuneration, a job which enables people to live with dignity, a job that enables people to make plans for the future and to fulfill their lives. The second revolution we need to engage in is the revolution of proximity. Local before global is our motto. Who could possibly believe, as the adepts of globalization proclaim, that it would be logical, environmentally friendly, or even economically sustainable to produce on one continent, transform on another, and consume on a third? We want a sustainable economy for France. We can achieve the relocation of our production by a reasonable and calculated use of economic protectionism and by applying economic patriotism. These are normal economic tools, although they are currently prohibited by the European Union. The most fundamental form of freedom is security. It will be one of the priorities of my presidency. We will restore the authority of the state by enforcing republican law wherever it has become flouted because of the lack of will and courage of previous governments. The way we will address crime and the penal response to it can be resumed in two words: zero tolerance. Everyone has to admit that the EU is a failure. It did not keep any of its promises, especially regarding prosperity and security. Worse, it has put us under its tutelage and on a very short leash. And who could possibly accept the status quo and just sit back while the system has harnessed us and doesn't work, and whose malfunctions are ruining us? This is why, within 6 months after my election to the French presidency, I will hold a referendum on remaining or leaving the European Union. I will immediately engage negotiations with European partners, many of whom are also aspiring to regain their sovereignty. I will start negotiating with a tyrannical European system, which no longer represents a project, but today is a mere parenthesis, and hopefully one day will just be a bad memory. We welcome all of those who share the same love for France and who seek to participate in the national effort to put our country back on track and together achieve the recovery of our nation. Patriots, you are all welcome. The great repositioning of the political system has begun.
Montre que la grande recomposition politique a commencé.
with those who will join us before the first round of the election, with those who will join us before the second round of the election, and those who will join us after our victory, we will form a presidential majority and, after the legislative elections, a government of national unity. I believe in our victory. I believe in our victory because I know that an overwhelming majority of French people agree with our choices and share our views we have for mankind and for our nation. Other nations have shown us the way. These nations have shown us that the rise of the people against the establishment can become reality, and how, as symbolized by our emblem with the blue rose, the impossible can become possible. As Victor Hugo put it in L'année terrible, after the French defeat, nous n'avons pas encore fini d'être français. We have not given up being French yet. The rise of the people is a historic event. It signifies the end of a cycle. The tide of history has turned. It will carry us to the top, and with us, our country, France. Long live the people, long live the Republic, long live France.